Hi, I'm Tony. What I'd like to share with you today is some insights into motion patterns as they relate to moving around the drum set. So starting with the two drum combinations, we're going to use a common denominator of 16th notes, and we're going to use single strokes. Now, to move from drum to drum, we're going to use at least two strokes, but if we need to change direction, especially when you get to two mounted toms, you need to use the third note. So you need to keep that in mind going forward for the rest of the combinations. Further, understand that the motion patterns are going to go from clockwise then to counterclockwise. So keep in mind either leading with the right hand and or the left hand. When you go to the right hand should get there first, and when you're going to the left hand should get there first. So keep that in mind going forward. And now the two drum combinations. First one, snare drum, mounted tom 1. Now we're going to move from mounted tom 1 to mounted tom 2 with 2 and or 3 notes. Keep in mind, once you get to the right side, not that I'm saying you can't cross over, but you want to use the third note to reverse direction. Keep that in mind again going forward. Next combination, mounted tom 2 to the floor tom. And the last combination, floor tom to snare drum. Now we're going to go for the 3 drum combinations. First one, snare drum, mounted tom 1, mounted tom 2. Next combination, mounted tom 1, mounted tom 2, and floor tom. Next combination, mounted tom 2, floor tom, and snare drum. Final combination, floor tom, snare drum, mounted tom 1. Next is the 4 drum combinations. The first combination is snare drum, mounted tom 1, mounted tom 2, and floor tom. Next combination is mounted tom 1, mounted tom 2, floor tom, and snare drum. Next combination is mounted tom 2, floor tom, snare drum, mounted tom 1. Last combination, floor tom, snare drum, mounted tom 1, mounted tom 2. This next section is going to include the same drum combinations, only we're going to use 4 notes, 6 notes, and 8 notes to move around the drum set. Keep in mind, it's going to be the double stroke at the end, whatever strokes you're using, that changes the direction. And what follows is a few examples. This next section is going to include 6 notes per drum with a couple of examples to demonstrate using this 6-note combination. Next section includes 8 notes per drum, using all the drum combinations and a few examples to demonstrate. This next section is going to include taking the 4, 6, and 8 groups of notes and accenting just the first note of each grouping and moving that grouping around the drum set, and a few examples to demonstrate. In this section, we're going to take the accents of the 4, 6, and 8 note groupings, and we're going to take those off the toms. We're going to keep all the other notes on the snare drum. This next section is going to include 16th notes, and the accents that we use, we'll play them off the toms, keep all the other notes on the snare drum. And as a result, you should see how this all ties into the very first demonstration of the 2 and 3 notes per drum, because it's one big motion pattern altogether. And this last section is going to demonstrate 2 solos from 2 different angles to put all this together so you can hear what some of this sounds like. Putting things in perspective, going back to the initial presentation of 2 to 3 notes per drum, also experiment with 4 and 5 notes and any combinations thereof. And given your drum set configuration, this works for any kind of configuration. As long as you're talking the drums, cymbals are a different story, okay? And keep in mind, lead with the right hand and lead with the left hand. And another consideration, slowly at first so you get comfortable with the pattern, and then take it from there because the speed will take care of itself. And just go with the creativity and keep discovering. Thanks.